So I make no secret that I am not the biggest fan of Stephen King. I have been burned many times when reading his books, but every now and then he is capable of surprising me. And such was the case with The Colorado Kid. This book really did restore my faith that Stephen King is on occasion capable of at least some degree of greatness. Now, if you are not familiar with The Colorado Kid, and this is one of Stephen King's lesser books, uh, it's kind of Stephen King light, but both because it's very thin, as well because it's not one of his more major novels like It or The Stand. The Colorado Kid is also not a work of horror. It is a crime novel, which was, I think, the inaugural book for Hard Case Crime, which is an imprint of books which uh, specialize in kind of throwback pulp novels, crime, adventure novels, noir fiction, that kind of thing. And Stephen King, I think, kicked off that line of books with this, The Colorado Kid. And I wanted to read this because I heard that this was so divisive that Stephen King fans either really, really loved this book or they really, really hated it. And I can understand why it is so polarizing, but I, for one, really, really liked it. And again, not only did it show me that Stephen King is occasionally capable of some degree of greatness, it showed me that Stephen King is occasionally capable of writing books that are actually about something. Now, there are very few books in Stephen King's body of work that I would say have any kind of real literary value, and I don't know that I would with this one, but this one is much closer, I'll say, than a lot of his other books. So, The Colorado Kid, as I said, is a crime fiction book. It is a mystery story. However, it is a mystery with no resolution. It is basically him punking the reader, faking you out into thinking that there is going to be some kind of uh, resolution to this central mystery when there is not. So I don't feel bad at all about spoiling this story because there really isn't anything to spoil because there is no resolution. So Stephanie McCann is a young journalist interning at a small town newspaper on a small island off the coast of Maine because it's always around in or around Maine. And she asks her two superiors, the two old guys who run the paper, Vince and Dave. She asks them if they have ever encountered a mystery that they have not been able to solve, a mystery that has no apparent solution, that's just kind of a dead end. And they say we have, and it is called The Colorado Kid. So basically, this entire book, and again, this is a very short book. It's not even 200 pages. In fact, if the line spacing hadn't been so big, it probably wouldn't have even been as many pages as it was. But the whole book almost is just these two old guys relating to this young woman, the story of the Colorado Kid, which is just a guy from Colorado who wound up in Maine, seemingly on an impossible time scale, and died. And no one knows what happened to him. No one knows how he got there, why he got there, what he was doing. It's just this guy who showed up on the beach on this little island off Maine who was from Colorado, and the rate of the travel that he would have had to undertake to get there when he did is almost impossible. And again, no one knows anything more about it. And that's all that we ever know. And that's the point, because this book is about mysteries. It is not a mystery story so much as it is a story about mysteries. And I think it is that pretty effectively. I think this book was able to accomplish what Stephen King wanted to accomplish with it pretty well, actually. And I give major credit to this book because there actually was something here to accomplish. Like, Stephen King's books aren't really the most thoughtful literature you're ever going to read. They're mainly just, airplane and bus fare. But every now and then, he will write something that's built upon a central idea, a central theme. And this is a prime example of that. Now, I'm not going to say that this book is like some kind of existential parable or anything like that. It's not deeply philosophical, but there is some really neat commentary in here about the nature of mysteries, and more than that, the nature of the unknown, and just how much of the unknown the human psyche is prepared to grapple with, and how we kind of crave the unknown, but it also kind of scares us. And again, just major points to this book for actually having something to say. Uh, but yeah, this book was just fun. And going into it knowing as I did that there wasn't going to be any resolution, that it's not going to, there's not going to be any solution to the mystery, no one's going to solve the mystery of the Colorado kid. I was more prepared for the ending that we got, which is just nobody knows, than the people who read this book initially and thought that it was going to be some kind of unraveling when it's not. And so I was able, I think, to really appreciate what Stephen King was doing with this book, and I really do appreciate that he was actually doing something with this book. Now, as to the criticisms, if you like Stephen King's writing, which I generally don't, well, you're going to love this book because it is typical Stephen King writing. The prose is really plain, really colloquial. There's not much metaphor or allusion or depth to it. It's just what he wants you to know, and his word choice is, you know, pretty standard. It's not, Stephen King's writing isn't terrible. It's just really uninspired, and he obviously doesn't prioritize the prose so much as other elements of the story. So, I mean, it's just, standard Stephen King writing. Although the characters in this book were actually a bit thinner than is the usual with Stephen King, because Stephen King almost always crafts really good characters, but not so much here, because the whole book basically is just a recounting of a decades old mystery, and the characters don't really have any real backstory. They don't really have much dialogue other than just telling this story. The two old newspaper guys do kind of come alive, because the way that they relate the story, it's a lot of that down home, small town hokiness that Stephen King often indulges in. But the characters just don't really have much backstory. We don't know much about them, and they kind of just they're basically just vehicles for this story within a story. But it's okay. Like, I'm so very glad that this story was as brief as it was, because I have said it before and I'll say it again. When Stephen King restrains himself, and when he is able to focus himself and not just veer off into the ridiculous self indulgence that he does in books like The Stand or It. He's much more able to approach greatness when he has his eyes on the prize. And this book exemplifies that. I think, again, the characters are a little bit more thin than what he normally writes. The prose is just his standard writing. But the fact that this book actually is about something really wins it points in my estimation, because so few of his books can really be said to be about anything other than just the immediate events which the story is concerned with. And again, I don't know that I would say that this book has any real like literary value, but I think it's much closer than the majority of his other books, because it kind of leaves you thinking. It's kind of like, you know, what is our craving for mystery? What is our craving for the unknown? Like, we need mysteries, we need the unknown, because even though we ostensibly in our lives try to eradicate the unknown, we still kind of need an element of mystery to keep things interesting, keep us on our toes. But how much is too much, and at what point does it become kind of uh, daunting in an existential sense? I think there was even a blurb in the opening pages of this book that called this like Stephen King's nausea, like Jean Paul Sartre. nausea. I would not call it that, but it is kind of in that vein. This book is built around kind of pondering things, and so again, so few Stephen King books are like that. So he really did win major points with me for that. And so to rate The Colorado Kid, I think I would give this a good B, maybe a B plus. Again, the characters are a little thinner than what he normally writes. The writing is, I'm not a huge fan of his writing, but it's just what you normally get with Stephen King. But the fact that it actually had something to say and that this book is actually about something, again, it won major points from me because of that, and also the focused nature of the narrative also won it major points because it's lean, it's mean, and it has its eyes on the prize. From page one, this book is not any longer than it needed to be, and I really do appreciate that. So yeah, The Colorado Kid by Stephen King. Have you read The Colorado Kid? If you have, let me know down in the comments what you thought about it, whether you have agreed or disagreed with anything that I've said about it here today. If you have not read The Colorado Kid, I could recommend this. It has an atmosphere of mystery to it. He's able to evoke that. Oh, I wonder what this is. I mean, I wonder what happened here. I wonder what's going to be the outcome. He's able to evoke that very well, and then at the end, he's just like, there is no outcome. No one knows. And I kind of like that because even though it's a fake out and that it denies you what you want most out of this kind of story, I really respected that it was willing to do that. And so, yeah, I could recommend this. It will take you no time at all to read because it's almost a novella. It's hardly what you'd even call a proper novel. But for what it is, it's a fun read, and it kind of does make you think a little bit, which again, not many Stephen King books can be said to do that. So yeah, this was a good book. And as always, if you have enjoyed anything you've seen or heard here today, remember to hit that like button and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And until next time, peace.